Now, there is nothing certain except for death and taxes, as the saying goes. Some tax investigators have gone as far as to search around coffins and dead bodies to catch tax evaders.
This year alone has seen multiple cases of tax evaders being prosecuted by the law. Amongst them are a tuition center owner, a second-hand car trader, casket firm owner, a pair of durian sellers, and a kidney specialist who managed to evade $1.4 million in taxes. So who are these tax offenders and why do they do what they do? I visited the folks at the Investigations and Forensics Division of IRAS, the National Tax Collection Agency, to find out more.
In the past, we investigate mainly businessmen who fail to report their income fully or claim certain expenses that are not allowable for tax purposes. Today, we deal with a lot more syndicated groups.
One of the ways where businesses cheat on their taxes is by avoiding GST registration. There are businesses that suppress their business turnover to keep it below the $1 million threshold.
So they under-declare it, essentially?
Yes. Another way that businesses may cheat on their taxes is by keeping the GST collected for themselves, where instead they had to actually pay it to IRAS.
Now, to talk about this further, we have Fabian Koh on the show. Hi, Fabian.
Hi.
Why do people still try to evade taxes?
Okay, so basically they evade taxes because they like money, they like to be rich, they get a bit greedy. Yeah, but I mean the tax investigators that I spoke to, they did say that it's granted it's still a small group of people out of the entire Singapore. Yeah, but they still have to have all these rules and enforcement actions carried out. And from January to September this year alone, IRAS, the National Tax Collection Agency, they actually collected 175 million in GST and
penalties, right?
Yeah, and penalties. So they said typically how they did it. You saw the clip earlier on.
I did,
yeah. Aloysius mentioned the under declaration of GST and keeping of the GST collected for themselves instead of paying it on to IRAS. Yeah, and then there's another method which is phantom GST, as they call it. So they have the individuals create companies and then they create false supply chains. So multiple companies carrying out business with one another, except there's actually no business transactions. Yeah, but based on all these false transactions, they claim GST. Yeah, and then they get a rebate from IRAS, and that's how they make money.
So in the course of doing your video and the story, I'm sure you've learned about a lot of inventive ways that people use to evade tax. Can you share with us maybe one of the more interesting ones?
Well, you actually hear, it was quite weird actually. So we know that there was that bit about the funeral companies that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So the tax investigators shared that they went in and they had to search for the documents and evidence and records that prove the tax offense, right? And then they had to move around coffins, move around dead bodies. Then, yeah. So that's quite unusual. You will not think that the tax people would have to go to this extent, right? Yeah, and also there's a case where he found the documents hidden in the false ceiling of a shop in a mall. So if I was the offender, right, I see the investigators come in, they search everywhere, you cannot find anything, I'll be like, wow, okay, very good. Then if I see him climb on the table and reach into the false ceiling, I know game over already. Yeah.
Okay, so to clarify, the tax investigator who was searching around the coffins and the dead bodies, so did he manage to find what he was looking for in a coffin, or was it in a ceiling?
He said he fortunately found it without much effort. Yeah, so for his sake, I hope they didn't have to actually find anything in the bodies or any who was waiting to be embalmed. Yeah.
Let's talk about how data and AI has actually made the tax investigator's job a lot more efficient. Can you maybe explain that to us?
Yeah, okay. So that was actually one of the points which I found very, very interesting, which is the ways they detect cases to investigate and audit. So the use of AI, what they do is that now they can use technology, this data analytics capabilities to sift through a lot of information, and then from there they can study patterns and behaviors and identify particular companies which are at high risk of evading taxes. Yeah. So basically, the likelihood of successful operations are very much higher nowadays. So that it actually makes them more efficient. Does
Maybe
not
you can
waste
give
their
us
time.
one example that was in your story. This is the one where tourists were using
Yes.
false, or they were falsifying
Correct.
tourist GST refunds.
For Indian nationals, this was shared by one of the investigators also. So for Indian nationals, they kept making GST claims at the airport. Yeah. So what IRAS did was they looked at their travel patterns, they looked at the amounts that they were claiming, and then they found like it was quite suspicious. Yeah. So that was how they started investigating, and in the end they prosecuted all of them.
And this would have been a lot more difficult or troublesome if it wasn't online, correct?
Correct.
The old school way. Right. So let's talk about the old school way of doing raids. We call them whistleblowers.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about these whistleblowers and tell us what's the incentive for them?
So these whistleblowers, they are people who have very particular information about the commission of such tax evasion. Yeah, so this information that they have, right, is beyond just like, oh yeah, I suspect that they are doing this or something. They actually have concrete knowledge of the modus operandi of the evader and very in-depth stuff, So this could be people who are their clients, the disgruntled competitors, or sometimes even the family members of the offenders themselves.
So what's in it for them?
If the tip-off leads to the recovery of taxes, right, they can actually claim up to 15% of the tax sales recovered. But kept at $100,000. So
that's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Fabian. Once again, that was Fabian. For more stories on tax evasion or how to not do that, you can check out the Straits Times website. Now, those were the top stories for today. For more news and videos, do head on to our website at straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Melissa, and thank you for tuning in. Join us tomorrow at the same time for more stories on The Big Story.